Good afternoon, Ms. Castrense. Good afternoon, classmates. We are the Group 1 who will present the summary of the research paper with the title of Aviation English, an Introduction by Peter H. Ragan. Next, I'm Beatrice Parce. Today I'm with Mary Grace Capalad, Lilibeth de la Cruz, Ysa Ann Rabino, Christine Joy Rodriguez, and Sharmaine Salvador. Lilibeth de la Cruz will discuss the first topic, which is objective of the study.
So this part is the objectives of the study. Expertise in using standard aviation phraseology has been a vital requirement among pilots, air traffic controllers, and other flight crew members to sufficiently communicate, transmit, and exchange information. Nonetheless, numerous cases of fatal aviation accidents have emerged between air traffic controllers and pilots due to the failure in utilizing standard phraseology, thus contributing to potential communication errors. The complication for particular aviation professionals and other individuals with limited English proficiency whose undertaking has been working in the aviation field is the prior concern of the study conducted by Ragan. As stated in his paper, there are a lot of requirements for the users of aviation English, which are the adequate provision of systematic knowledge of the language and cultivating them to become more proficient in language use. So is the general objective. The study carried out by Ragan aims to serve as a general introduction to aviation English to improve its use, especially for aviation professionals, which helps increase situational awareness and language competence in the aviation field. And the specific objectives: to present a background concerning the language and the situation which is supported by related research studies, to coherently describe and analyze the concepts circling the topic and the nature of aviation uses of language, who is using the language and what purpose it serves, to examine and review selected relevant writing which help expand the understanding and the knowledge of the study. So Ms. Rodriguez will explain to you the next section.
In this chapter, we consider two research frameworks, which are the theoretical and conceptual. It introduces the relevant theory and conceptual framework to make scholarly research paper clearly and understandable in connection with the study Aviation English and Introduction. First of all, before I come up with the idea of the framework of the article, I divided it by two concepts, which are the concept of aviation English and the concept of crisis in the air. So as we read the journal article, we can clearly see that it talks about how aviation English is relevant through its own language and phraseology. On the other hand, it tackles the issues or crises happening in the air, whether it is a human factor or nature. I analyze each concept where we can identify that it provides the summary and how the research contributes to the conversation on the topic. Next. The first one is the concept of aviation English. Since aviation English is the main discourse from the article and it is a required language for pilots and air traffic controllers, we all know that language use is only possible when the users share the same system of meaning, which is the aviation English. Successful language users have to be able to comprehend and produce wording that is correct, appropriate, and has a combination of vocabulary, grammar, and lexicon. So let us look to this theory. I chose this first concept because the scholarly journal article talks mainly about the introduction of aviation English. In this concept, it is related to the theory of John Swales, which is the discourse community in 2011. So who is John Swales? He is a professor of linguistics and co-director of the Michigan Corpus of Academic Spoken English at the University of Michigan. He defined a discourse community as having members who share a common set of goals. He believed that people working in the same discourse community use specialized lexicons specific to that occupation. They often share the same goals and use language to achieve those goals. A discourse community is a group of people that frequently take part in discourse. The members of the discourse community are often thought to have things in common such as values, judgments, and form of communication. Shared communication could be things like using the same language, dialect, and specific forms of communication. The diagram states that Aviation English is linked with four aspects. It is considered as a lingua franca, which is considered as a language of the sky, has registers. The tower communication and specialized language are idiosyncratic. It also has its own lexicon and phraseology. Collection of people or groups that work towards a common goal through communication. This group develops a process for communication, a unique vocabulary of jargon, and a power structure tied to the source of their community. Next slide. So this is the concept of crisis in air. Human factors research largely investigates the air traffic control system in terms of its capabilities and limitation, often exploring human error and system-induced human error. So based on what we studied before, there is a situation where the traffic controller and the pilot, caused by an aircraft accident report of Avianca Airlines, concluded that problems with limited English proficiency contributed to the disaster. Miscommunication abound in profession like aviation. The concept of crisis in air that I have gathered is interrelated to the theory of multi-causation theory. So this theory, the accident causation is attributed to the chain of events ultimately caused by human error. So human error is in turn caused by one of the three situations: overload, inappropriate response, and inappropriate activities. The diagram shows the concept of crisis in air, and all of them can cause accident, and as we notice, the blue circles are the factors caused by human or behavioral factors, while the green colors are the factors caused by nature or environmental situation. So in all, the multi-causation theory views any situation in which an accident might occur as a system with three components. It's either a person, machine, and environment. So the next reporter would be Ysa, which tackles about the methodology.
The
Next
third
slide.
part The third part is significance of the study. The researcher believed that there was a need to expand the existing knowledge of English as the language of air in the field of aviation. With this being said, Ragan asserted that this study is significant for aviation professionals, pilots, students entering the aviation industry, air traffic controllers, and flight crew members. More specifically, Ragan's study served as an introduction to aviation English as a restricted register to the said individuals as in parts to the importance of aviation English and its nature. The issues surrounding its use and application and improves their knowledge of aviation English. In particular, this study benefits the following, specifically students. It can provide students with familiarization with aviation English for situational-based knowledge. Also, especially for those who have limited English proficiency and perceived language deficiency. The next one is aviation professional or controllers. Strengthen the effectiveness of communication between aviation professionals and to promote flight safety and avoid miscommunication both in flight and non-flight areas. The last one is flight crew members. Assist flight crew members in providing and receiving clear, comprehensive instructions, questions, and answers about aircraft takeoff, flight, and landing, as well as other flight and non-flight related information. The fourth will be discussed by Ysa Ann.
In mythology, so we have the introduction, identifying the sources, journal review. Multiple research was conducted in determining each aim in the implementation of aviation English, especially since it is one of the norms and requirements that is needed for all the pilots and air traffic controllers. So the aim of this research is to know what is needed to expand in its knowledge when it comes to the aviation English language. We all know that aviation is a specialized, technology-based area that covers a broad range of activity. In this journal article, it identifies what aviation English is all about and what its purpose is. Simply, the focus of aviation English is to raise questions about what it is and how it works. The fundamental goal of this is to arrive at a description of the nature of the particular phenomenon, which is to know the cause in standardizing the English language in the aviation industry to have a better communication between the pilot and its traffic controller. Next slide. Next slide. So next is we have the research design. This study focuses on the theories that will support this methodology that contains qualitative research. Through this process, the article may construct the universal meaning of the event, situation, and experience and arrive at a more profound understanding of the phenomenon. We use this kind of approach so that we can truly know how the medium affects the communication language that is used between the pilot and the air traffic controller. This study focuses on how the FFA's data link will be effective in exchanging communications between the aircraft and the control towers to ensure the safety of its aircraft. Next. Thus, the connection of English language in general is needed for safety and efficiency in communication to lead to creative combinations of technology, automation, and language witnessed by the FFA's data link. It is a computerized communication device in which a menu driven by the communication choices that can be electronically between aircraft and control tower computers. English is the international language of the air. It is not the primary language of all those who are using it. Next slide po. So in methodology, we have also the respondents. In this journal article, the participants of the study will be the people of the students that are included in the aviation industry or aviation field. The example is the pilots, the cabin crews, and also it can be the aviation students who are currently studying under the aviation course. This study will help them to know about aviation English. The author used this journal article to spread and also gather the needed information that would fulfill the necessary data in the study since its participants are the people that are in the aviation industry. So the next will be reported by Miss Mary Grace Capalad.
Here is the result and discussion of the study. The author's suggestions, which are cited in the paper, can be beneficial in a variety of ways because it identifies the flaws, conflicts, and solutions relevant to the claimed study. Many fields are lacking to determine the introduction of aviation English to all aviation professionals for the betterment and avoidance of problems such as miscommunication, being unfamiliar with handling language variation on which to base teaching materials, and more. The FAA should reevaluate all official definition of words as well as expression being used to describe the minimum level and emergency fuel. Studying aviation English is difficult for all native and non-native aware of English, being and position that contributes to the knowledge about how important this topic is. Introducing aviation English had undergone many procedures before it was implemented as requirement for all traffic air controllers and pilots. One of the reasons why aviation English was introduced is because of the Avianca 052 accident that happened before, where the findings were the miscommunication between the air traffic controller and the pilot. The incident merely demonstrates how aviation professionals should be knowledgeable about how aviation English, because aviation English is not just a language. After all, it has its meaning. That is why the FAA needs to evaluate the definition and proper terms that aviation professionals should use when communicating about what needs to be done or problem when having a flight, etc. Every person who pursues a career in aviation, whether as a student or employee, must have a very precise understanding of the language they use and why. Since the language used in aviation is different from the language we often use as native speakers, and the understanding of unfortunate incidents. And there are a lot of things that need to be improved, and one of them is the importance of learning aviation English, because this kind of topic has not been really discussed, and writing a research paper on aviation is a tragedy. That is why this kind of study needs to be focused and well studied, because through that we can save lives and make a safe flight. And here is Miss Salvador will explain the conclusion.
Thank you for that. Now that we have reached the conclusion, the paper we have chosen has provided a background behind aviation English, why did it exist in the first place, the general knowledge and the essence of it, particularly on the concept of restricted registers by using ETC tower communications as an adequate example. From this, we concluded that there are still more areas that can be explored beyond the contents of aviation English to meet the future needs of students and professionals, both native and non-native English speakers, a more accurate description of its practicality based on a qualitative and quantitative analysis of stipulated and actual languages is deemed necessary. Most importantly, this will not only help raise additional necessary issues that will aid upcoming aviation or aerospace professionals, but it will also assist us as researchers in improving our skills and developing more knowledge on the topic. And with that, we're now going to proceed with the recommendation section.
There are many subjects and relevant information that will help readers determine and perceive the sources of risk related to the accident that happened in the aviation field. Further serious arise for those with limited English proficiency who enter and work in the aviation industry. The contextual accessibility to public and competence training that is typical in the aviation industry needs to expose these employees to more methodological language study. The incentive for such education must come from regulatory and licensing organization. The following are recommendations for research study that will enable rational decision and finding for future research. Researchers should also devote attention to the people who mentor the next generation of aviators in order to locate and develop highly qualified professor and educator in the field. More serious issues arise for those with limited English proficiency who enter and serve in the aviation industry, and through recommendation, it helps a researcher or study to find relevant information that help them improve their work or the study. And the first recommendation to the study of introducing aviation English is that staff members need to be exposed and systematic language study outside of the context accessible to the public and competence training that is prevalent in the aviation business, because this will determine other information in improving their competence in aviation English language skills. Second is regulatory and licensing institution must provide the motivation for such instruction, because this will establish clear goals and create connection that are meaningful and ethical. The most important recommendation in introducing aviation English is to conduct research on selecting and hiring an aviation instructor, particularly for educators who will teach future aviation professionals. And having a highly qualified professor will shape one's individual future, and they are the ones that impart knowledge. That's next. That's it. Thank you.
And with that, our report ends. Thank you.